Let's go!
Let's talk about it. There was a trailer that popped up not that long ago, and it was something that I had been feared and I had warned people about a couple months ago, something like that. It was to a point where it seemed like MK1 got its latest DLC character, which was the T-1000, and people were sort of emphatically, this is great, like this is a cool character. Kind of happy about MK1. I'd say earlier this year when they were getting its DLC and there was like the talk of costumes possibly being there and all this stuff, that's like, that's weird that they would add movie costumes to things we haven't even seen before. It almost seems like they're getting ready for content that's way far away and injecting it into the game now to sort of be ready the fact that this game will not be getting updates in the future. People actually looked at it as a sign of really good news that we're going to continually get more MK1, and I sort of looked at it as bad news. I think they're like preloading the game with the stuff that they can just eventually release. At the end of every NRS game, they usually do a compilation of some kind. They usually do some sort of release at the end of MK11, Injustice 2, Mortal Kombat X even, a full compilation that includes most of the DLC seasonal content that is available in them and just packages it as one for a discount, and they no longer individually sell those things. They just want you to buy the big thing. That only historically has happened when they're done. It's only historically happened when development has finished and they are kind of working on the next game and they're like, well, we're sort of setting this one behind and we're moving forward. That could not be the case, but just the other day, this was announced. Mortal Kombat 1 Definitive Edition. Actual Definitive Edition. And it's a trailer. It exists.
It pleases me to again face combat.
It literally is taking pretty much all the core big content that was Mortal Kombat 1 and cramming it all together in like a new boxed release almost, you know? This also happened to the other games as well. There was like a new physical, a new digital. It kind of like, yeah, the fire sale at the end. Here's those cool movie costumes, and yeah, bro, like, dude, this Sub-Zero looks crazy cool. I hate that I made that pun, I'm sorry. The Sub-Zero looks really good. So, damn, that Shao Kahn also looks great. This Scorpion also looks great. The visuals in MK1, as much as I really prefer the art style of MK11, god damn, dude, this game does look really good sometimes. Like, they really nailed it. A lot of focus on guest characters because they're like the most marketable, you know. Omni-Man crunching. People getting stabbed, yada, yada, yada. I'm about to watch like, what, 6 more minutes of fatalities, animalities, brutalities, finish himalities, nudialities, babyalities, floydialities, everything. It's kind of dire. I'm not saying what I predicted would happen is a definitive explanation that they could be done. It's not. This could just be happening, and maybe they're doing something a bit different with MK1, but it's not looking particularly good. And I do think that is sad. Just generally speaking, before we talk about some of the things that this game eventually ended up doing very well, that makes this, in my eyes, the most fun Mortal Kombat to play since Mortal Kombat X. I want to kind of focus on how MK1 got here and what could be better like for the future. So if this is the end, right? If this is like truly the end, the issue is that it sort of breaks the promise. Once again, this was a second promise, right? There was also a promise made by Ed Boon for Mortal Kombat 11 that there would be significantly more expansion / support for Mortal Kombat 11 as a game. MK1, they said the same thing, that they wanted to continue and support it more and yada yada yada, support it for years. And I have something to tell you guys. I'm not just in Ed Boon's pocket when I talk about this. Ed didn't lie when he said that, and that was indeed likely their plan. What he said was true at the time. The issue is that NetherRealm Studios and the choices they make are not chosen by them when they eventually make it into the game. It was absolutely their intention that they wanted to keep developing and supporting and refining this game to turn it into something that could potentially be like much better than it was at launch. Even the launch of the game felt like it was kicked up 6 months quicker than it should have been. Should have been launching in early 2024 instead of 2023. The extremely heavy-handed additional costume, DLC, cosmetic stuff that was sprinkled throughout the entire game, those are not things that are chosen by NRS. In fact, the money that is made from those transactions are not something that is going directly into the pockets of NetherRealm Studios. It's going into the pockets of the publisher, and those decisions are made by the publisher. Publisher's WB. WB's had a track record of a lot of really weird-ass decisions that they have made since the get-go, and not even including Mortal Kombat 1, several of their projects have been going through it. In fact, the whole reason we're here, the whole reason we're having this conversation right now, is because even though MK1 goes on to be one of the most played online games on like PlayStation, we actually see those figures. Ed posts them every once in a while. Mortal Kombat 1 remains, for like the past year, in the top 20 most played games on PlayStation, beating out all the other fighting games, beating out literally any other fighting game that is on that specific network. Even though that happens, there's rumors that Chaos Reigns does not sell particularly well. As an expansion, it's greatly overpriced. The quality of the story expansion isn't particularly great either. It is easily the weakest NRS like story mode of all of them. It leaves you in a finality that kind of leaves me bewildered that, whoa, we're ending the game here? Because it was quite literally an end of an episode where it felt like there was going to be maybe another episode and then a finality. There was going to be a lot. We were just building up towards something. And the whole point of this one was, you know, the Cyber Ninja Girls were not even Cyber Ninja Girls. It was just Sector and Cyrax, you know, not even cybernetic anymore, finding their place in the story, right? And finding their place amongst characters so that they could become part of like a bigger finality. And it just ends. And it just is them shaking hands like we're going to be friends now type of thing. And then it just ends. So long story short, 6 months later, there is some rumors, and these aren't even considered leaks because they are just rumors, that this expansion pack doesn't sell particularly well. Early signs that whatever future story modes might have been planned or whatever DLC characters, that there's a chance that there's not going to be anything more, that whatever's at the end of the season could be it. Considering what's happening with this definitive edition, it looks like that's the case. There's a very high probability that the developers at NRS likely wanted to continue, wanted to refine, because I'm going to be honest, they have been. This past 6 months of the game, 6 to 8 months, this final season has had some of the best gameplay and updates to MK1 that we've seen. There were several things added to this game that were super cool. And finally, it felt like the game was on an upturn. It felt like, dude, some of the decisions that's going into this is good. Since even pre-release, I have been pretty dour on MK1, although feeling better than I had with MK11 pre-release and making some criticisms about its gameplay and stuff. Pretty dour on how this game is functionally. And then it came out, and unfortunately all of my paranoia about this game pre-release proved to be real, and the game was truly in a very bad state when it came out, really not meeting the expectations of people that are looking forward to gameplay stuff, much less casual fans looking for content. It was not there, dude. So they spent like almost a year really refining the game and turning it into something more fun. But ultimately speaking, a game that I did find more generally fun than any NRS game since Mortal Kombat X. And I can emphatically say that right now, that at the end of MK1 now, I genuinely have had more fun with this game as an NRS game than any NRS game since Mortal Kombat X, straight up. Some of the Season 3 characters and adjustments they made across the board and how the cameo system is now working is so much better, dude. Jesus, man. It's actually a fun game. I can see myself coming back to this with friends every once in a while. It won't be the forever game. It's not an MKX to us, but I can see us coming back to it. However, how did we get here? Outside of the fact that this game did not meet the content demands of people that Injustice 2 and Mortal Kombat 11 had, it did not have that stuff. Number one, it's just not going to meet the expectations of those fans. There was another problem. Cameos as a concept was always extremely half-baked. What the game is trying to teeter the line of staying a 1v1 game, but not entirely being a 1v1 game, trying to like teeter this line of we're gonna do this MK9 tag game situation, but we're not gonna have the tagging. We're still gonna have the bonus extra character, but you don't have to play them completely. They were really trying to ride this line of making that acceptable. They came up with Marvel vs. Capcom PlayStation version. And for anybody that doesn't know what the hell that is, the PlayStation version of Marvel vs. Capcom is significantly different than the arcade version. The game doesn't have the memory to support multiple characters tagging in at one time. All you do is you have like assists. You choose like one character and you kind of choose an assist character. And it sort of is like a 1 versus 1 game, and it plays out like a 1 versus 1 game, and you call the assist, you know, willy-nilly. That's what MK1 ended up being. And then ultimately speaking, a lot of stuff in the game just played out very similarly, and that's because so many of the characters and the new tools they have been given ran at a snail's pace, bro. It's something that that always bugged me in MK1 was the speed of attacks, how fast combo strings are, and how fast specials are. I'm gonna tell you right now, and you can go back and check this out. One of the bigger criticisms of this game is that it was insanely slow. They picked up the pace of several characters down the line, but dude, if you go back and watch MK11, it looks like the game is running at 1.5 speed on YouTube. It looks like it's running like light speed faster and then MK1 is. And that's MK11, and that game was already considered slow. The game wasn't making any friends. The nice part is that they were sort of treating it as in like the exploration, all that kind of stuff, but the way they handled assists and how assists are nerfed and adjusted at a very early level also made us realize that like, oh, well, the cameos themselves don't really line up with like what a traditional assist game is, because any of the fun cameos are limited to a timer that takes forever for them to come back, and some are obviously way more busted than others, and they have to nerf those. They tone like everything down again, and so it's like, oh my gosh, dude. Again, cameos ended up landing in a pretty good spot, but it took like over a year. I want to talk about the things that I really enjoy about this game, but I think it's important to see like why we got here. I don't want to like kick a dead horse too much in this situation, but one thing I will say that if this is the end of MK1, I have to commend NRS. It may not seem that way in the myriad of like these weird seasons of content that are in there with all of this crazy DLC cosmetic bullshit that's in the game that's just littering the whole goddamn game. It may not seem like they give a shit and they're just like cramming it in there, but there was a lot of really significant improvements to how this game works as an experience, but a lot of things that never got a chance to be fixed. For example, like the online functioning even at half the capacity. I'm not talking about like netcode specifically. I'm talking about online functionality, like how players match up with each other. I could not stand that. Whenever I played MK11, dude, I spent the majority of my time looking at trees. And my ass was just like searching for opponent. By trees, I mean the default MK1 background. I'm just looking at trees, dude. I've spent so many hours of my life looking at these fucking trees. Like, that stuff was a problem, man. You spent so much of the time in MK1 Online not fighting people, and it made it kind of boring. You know, we literally saw this happen with the Fatal Fury beta before that game was out. I'm like, this game's kind of a snooze. And all of a sudden, they fixed those issues. They took down the downtime in between matches as much as they possibly could, and in matches, game became way more fun, way more enjoyable, way easier to find people just to grind matches, all that kind of stuff. It became so much better. MK1 has that problem, like straight up. It does have rollback. It does have decent functioning online too. It does. I think there's a lot to learn from MK1 outside of just its failures. And it's some of the things that I think are some of the best executed things that they have done in an MK game, especially from the consideration of gameplay in a long time. But that's even at the consideration that many attacks were too slow. The cameo system was something that was never going to get people on board and seem like really cool. It's never going to be the thing that is going to be like, this is a new way to play MK. This is it, bro. That was never going to happen. And it's just not going to be the sort of game that will do that. You know what I mean? If anything, NRS has definitely learned Mortal Kombat from this point forward is a 1v1 game. Straight up. This shit is a 1 versus 1 fighting game. I've made an exclamation in the past that did get a lot of people kind of heated. And I have said that we don't want Injustice 3. I say that specifically from a gameplay perspective and how the communities were reacting to those games retrospectively. But I would like to clarify something that was put into there because people are like, well, I want that. I want Injustice 3. I want those characters back. I will say I agree with you. I do not want another Injustice that follows the exact same path of Injustice 1 and 2. Games that have huge screens, tiny characters, zoning wars, left and right. It is the Call of Duty of fighting games. To me, if they actually evolved Injustice the same way that they have historically evolved Mortal Kombat and changed Mortal Kombat, I'm totally down, bro. The exclamation of, we don't want an Injustice 3, or specifically, I'll just say me, because I don't want to put words into your mouth, is that I can't go through that game again. I cannot. Like, they're just going to give us a bigger meter burn roll now. Like, no, dude, that's not going to fix the problems. They're just going to make the slip out do the MK11 thing where there's now anti-slip out. It's like we functionally got another game that was very similar to Injustice 2, and it was actually MK11. MK11 carried a lot of that shit over. But if there is Injustice in the future, I want it to be different. I want it to be a game that has interactions different than what Injustice 2 historically was. Injustice 1 even. But there's a problem. This is actually the dire news at the end of all things here in this conversation for MK1. If this is winding down the clock and we're just now on, you know, ticking the time till Ed Boon shows up at the Game Awards again or some shit, a Summer Games Fest, and reveals to us the future of NetherRealm fighting games. And that future is going to be likely not an Injustice game, likely not an MK versus DC game, likely not a new IP. That future is going to be what the CEO of WB Games, of Warner Brothers, said to us directly to our goddamn faces, that they're focusing on a limited few franchises because they're running out of money and they don't have any budget to waste on things that won't hit. And they specifically said Mortal Kombat. I sympathize with the devs, dude. I think they must be burned out so fucking hard of like cranking out MK11, which is considered by many to be one of the best looking and playing Mortal Kombat games, like content wise and everything, to immediately have to jump right into another Mortal Kombat, and suddenly that one doesn't hit and they're like super humbled by it. They finally have a game in the past like 10 years that doesn't land, and that feels bad, dude. To be told again, well, that's not working, we're done with it, don't even continue it, don't even continue to update it, we just have to move forward and start fresh and just fix the problems and just release the next game, a goddamn Mortal Kombat again. If this is the end of MK1, I wish it was Injustice 3, dude. These devs need a break. They need a break from MK. They need an opportunity to reevaluate things and look at something so they can grow and have a fresh perspective going into another Mortal Kombat game. That fresh perspective is something that made Mortal Kombat X way better. That turned that into like a true elevation of Mortal Kombat. You know why? Because MKX took several things from Injustice 1 and they put it into that game. They didn't take the overall gameplay, but many mechanical things in terms of like interactables and all that kind of shit kind of came back, and they were sort of cool. They were refined and they made sense, and it was like, this is neat. Many things from Injustice 2 carried over into Mortal Kombat 11. There was a growing space there where the Injustice series kind of allows NRS to grow as a company and then move forward and apply those big changes into their next game. Injustice 2 sort of like floundered a bit, but looked amazing, but allowed MK11 to soar to become like the best-selling Mortal Kombat ever.